I know what you're thinking. I've been really boring lately. 2's Philip has always played second fiddle to his brother, and even more so now that he's shifted away from fun stuff like gaming and towards more boring stuff like making them. Maybe I'm out of ideas. No, coming up with new ideas is easier than sticking with old ones for me, and I've committed to a lot of long-standing projects that have sapped my motivation for other stuff. I swear that it will all be worth it in the end, but right now I can understand your disappointment. But here, allow me to extend an olive branch to you in the form of a beautiful and long 4K video about gaming, more specifically, Titanfall 2. Before booting it up today, I didn't know anything about the series, other than that it runs on Source, but somehow manages to look really pretty. I didn't play the first game, and at first thought this would just be a multiplayer one as well, with a bit of single player tacked on for the sake of it. But it's not like that. Anyway, the reason I'm playing it is because EA contacted me, and me specifically, rather than my brother. This impressed me because it shows that they care about getting the right person rather than the biggest. They provided me with a game key, and the only requirement was that I don't release any content too early, which obviously isn't a problem for me since I barely release anything at all. And that's it. I was left to do what I want to do. I realised how boring I was when the first thought was to make a video comparing this game's graphics to Valve games. Like, what the hell, Philip? But believe it or not, it would have made sense since this game runs on Source, the same ancient old engine that powers all Valve games including Half-Life 2, Global Offensive, Left Dead and so on. But there's absolutely no way that you'd know that from playing this game since it's gorgeous and doesn't seem to suffer from the 1,000 weak points of the engine it's based on. It's pretty much Source 2. Which reminds me, it annoys me when people argue over which is better, Unreal 4 or CryEngine 3. Like, do they even think that most companies are going to max out these engines? The largest determiner of a game's graphics these days is the developers and how good they are, not just at crafting detailed stuff, but piecing it together and lighting it all in a very appealing and convincing way. But even with that, the Source engine is a strange choice, and is only greater testament to how talented the makers of Titanfall are. I have no idea what the thought process was behind the decision to use Source, but it seems to have worked. A confession? I didn't play the first game. Multiplayer doesn't really interest me. The last thing I need in my life right now is another multiplayer game with no ending. But I'm happy to say that this sequel has a dedicated single-player campaign, and that it's really, really good fun. It's not some half-assed warm-up to the multiplayer element of the game. It's polished, professional, and a huge amount of fun. I did a bit of research into Respawn Entertainment, the makers of Titanfall 1 and 2. That's all they've done so far, but the founders used to work on Call of Duty, and it shows here. Put it in all the right ways. Because like it or loathe it, you know what you're getting with Call of Duty. You don't get them expecting something new and exciting. You get it because you enjoy that annual, supremely polished campaign. Or maybe you enjoy the most toxic multiplayer experience on the planet. And it always delivers. When it comes to single-player games, I'm a little bit behind the times. With Call of Duty, for example, I completed 1, 2 and 4 and loved all of them. World at War was a bit boring and I didn't manage to finish it. Then I took a break until Modern Warfare 3, which I really did enjoy, but I guess I did look at it from a different perspective. The general consensus is that Call of Duty games are the same thing every year, but if, like me, you take a break for a while, those small improvements with every title really do add up, and I was impressed by just how good Modern Warfare 3 was. I then didn't play another one until that one with the evil president dude, and really enjoyed that one too. So what's this got to do with Titanfall 2? Not a lot. Just gives me more time to showcase some of the gameplay really. But I guess I'm saying that perhaps my standards are a little lower than others since I don't gobble up every single player game the moment it's released. And I can happily say that Titanfall 2's single player campaign is the most enjoyable single player campaign I've played to date. The shooting feels like Crysis 3, the movement's like Mirror's Edge, and the weapons remind me of Borderlands. It's all very meaty feeling. I'm not a fan of enemies requiring 100 shots to go down, and sure enough, a well-placed headshot with almost any weapon will fool almost any enemy almost immediately. And your melee attack is hilariously OP, causing enemies to ragdoll dozens of feet, accompanied by a splittery, splattery whoomp noise. Most of the game is go to this button here, find a way into that room there, and so on, upon which more enemies will be spawned and you have to fight your way through to the next bit. None of this is particularly new, but it's very well done and I have complete faith in the control system. Some of the jumps you do are downright terrifying, but whenever I messed up it was certainly my fault rather than the game's. A lot of the time you'll approach something that looks unclimbable, but mashing the spacebar tends to get you to the bit you want to be and you get all proud of yourself for having ascended such a challenging bit of scenery. Must look hilarious from someone else's perspective. I never found myself getting lost in the game either, which was surprising since some of the environments are huge and sprawling. A lot of the time I'd think I was taking a detour off the beaten track, but I'd still find myself reaching where I was supposed to be going. Your progress is saved with pretty much every room. As long as you don't rush too quickly or land in the middle of a crowd of enemies, then it's never too challenging, though I did play the game on normal difficulty. I know, I'm such a noob. It might be flashbacks to the original Call of Duties where everything was a bit more unfair, but I don't enjoy difficult playthroughs. At least, not the first time I played them. I play these games for fun. Sorry. You can only hold 2 weapons at once, but the system is really well designed. I felt that I could stick with the same one for a while, but the game does encourage you to try others by gradually depleting your ammunition reserves with certain weapons. Or maybe that's some kind of crazy conspiracy I think that's going on. I don't know. And to be honest, I don't really care. It's fun. But yeah, I don't think I'll be getting bored of the weapons anytime soon. There are plenty of them and they're all fun and different to use. I particularly like the grenades. There's one that fires thermite in all directions for a while, causing huge damage. A bit like those firework videos you find on Live League. But as fun as this part of the game is, it's only half the story. This is Titanfall, and for a lot of the game you have some mega OP robot sidekick. Even when on foot, you feel like a capable warrior, but once you hop into this thing, you become unstoppable. It feels very different from standard combat. Very weighty, but not slow or boring. And there's a surprising amount of depth to this combat too. You can shoot, you can automatically target everybody with rockets, you can deploy electrical smoke clouds, you can even stop incoming projectiles like Neo before hurling them back at your attackers. And that's just one of many different weapon systems that you can choose from, and occasionally you'll be pitted up against other titans in some kind of mini boss battle. It feels very different from the rest of the gameplay, but it's still just as fun. Plus you can get out of the robot and fight on foot whenever you like, leaving the AI to fend for himself, which he can, very capably. I found myself getting rather attached to my Titan. He's one of the least annoying characters I've encountered in a game, calmly stating important information or stroking my ego by saying how talented a leader I am. Same can't be said for the enemies you face though. Don't think that sticking to single player will spare you from childish taunts and insults from other pilots. They'll start by telling you how you're so gonna die. Will laugh at you whenever you eat one of their rockets, and when they're about to be defeated they'll blame it on their robot or whatever. It does a really good job of representing what multiplayer games are like. Occasionally you'll get to talk to your Titan about pointless stuff, though a lot of the time I didn't even notice the text options popping up. I dread to imagine what my poor Titan must think of me, any friendly attempts to get to know me simply being met with abrupt silence. But then again, a lot of the options are so cocky and childish I think I'd rather be a rude mute. No one thinks badly of Gordon Freeman, right? What I also like is how alive this game feels. I guess there aren't many examples to base it on, but I've always found Source games to be a bit lonely. But here there's always something exciting to look at, be it flowing water, jets of steam, moving platforms, or creatures straight out of Avatar gnawing on your foes. You'll also frequently encounter friendly squads of humans and robots that fight alongside you. This game just crams so much into every minute of gameplay in a desperate bid to hold your attention for as long as it can before you close it and go back to browsing dank internet memes again or whatever. I haven't played too far through it just yet, so hopefully the gameplay you see here doesn't reveal anything too important. Not that this is the sort of game where it matters that much. I was really hoping for something bad to say about it, since I don't want this video to sound like a shameless endorsement, but nothing really pops to mind. Maybe that it's a first-person shooter and that it's all been seen before, only not all at the same time. Maybe the campaign gets rubbish later on. But right now I'm really enjoying it. So much thought and effort has gone into every bit of it, I feel rude for not stopping and appreciating all of it. But who's got the time for that? The highlight for me so far has got to be a level that could have been ripped straight from Portal. Like a modern and very intelligent take on one of those old platformer games that didn't make much sense. You start by seeing strange items hanging everywhere, but if you're like me then you don't think much about it, just a misstep by the designers or something. But then it will slowly click in your head that you're on some kind of weird large-scale production line, controlled by some Machiavellian GLaDOS-like figure. Not a single word has to be spoken, you see it all coming together as you venture through it, and it's only at the very end that you realise what it's all about. It's a hugely unnecessary, bizarre and surreal sub-story that concludes very satisfyingly. I really think it's going to be remembered as one of those levels that goes down as being one of the greats. But like I said, I haven't played through it too much just yet. It keeps one-upping whatever it did before, so I'm looking forward to playing more of it. I was hoping to get a video on Deus Ex out, but everybody I know has had the same problem as I do. It's great fun, probably my favourite game of all time, and yet it requires so much thinking I rarely bother to load it up and still haven't completed it, which is why that video has taken so long. But I'm getting there. Don't expect anything quite so intellectually challenging with Titanfall though. A game where beating enemies can be achieved by mashing the fire button, or a jump puzzle completed by mashing the jump button. But the prospect of loading this game up again is more inviting to me right now than with Deus Ex. And if I do get around to completing the single player campaign, it will be because I enjoyed doing it, not because I felt obliged to. 2016 is turning out to be a good year for single player games. Both Doom and Titanfall 2 have exceeded my expectations. I feel that rushing through it for the sake of it would be doing a disservice to how much thought has gone into it, but I can't help but play through this game like it's a Quake speedrun. It's just the way it plays and it's fun to do. So, Titanfall 2's single player campaign is a welcome and unexpected surprise. So far. I mean, if I play through the rest of it and it's a bunch of dicks, then I will come back and retract the statement. I still don't feel that I've described it that well, but it gets everything good about existing games and rolls them all together in a very action-packed and smart way. I've heard rumours that this game's not selling too well. Perhaps because it's released so closely to the likes of Battlefield and Skyrim, or perhaps they've just been too generous in giving out keys to everybody. I don't know. But I've got to say that it would be a shame if a game of this calibre goes down as being a failure. I hope it does well, not just because it deserves it, but because of what it stands for. We don't all want to play every game for thousands of hours. As time has gone on, I've begun to appreciate short, sweet and memorable single-player games more and more. And as much as I want to love Deus Ex, I suspect it's Titanfall 2 that I'll be completing first.
Well done, pilot.